Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Okay, I'm here up at Eskel's Cliff again. I was here a few videos ago. Behind me is Gwenver Beach, one of the best surfing beaches around. That side of the camera is Sennen Cove, where I've been a time or two before. Need to just finish up talking about pensions. I'll do that this time and on the next video as well. But one thing we haven't dealt with yet really is what happens after age 75. Excuse me. We've talked about annuities. We've talked about drawdown. Last time we talked about phased income, phased retirement, phased drawdown. And that all really is what happens when you decide you want to take money out of your pension. Those are the options for doing so. But as I stand at the moment, or at least up until about 8 weeks ago, there was a rule that at age 75 you had to buy an annuity. Well, that rule has been sort of shelved temporarily. The rule is now that you have to buy an annuity at age 77, pending consultation, because I think it's the coalition government's desire to remove that rule, which is a good thing. Because, you know, if you've been in drawdown for 10 years, it seems a bit arbitrary to make you buy an annuity at age 75. So hopefully that rule will be abolished pretty soon. But as it stands at the moment, you have to buy an annuity from age 77, but that's just an interim measure. So let's just assume that that stays that. In fact, let's assume that they don't make any changes at all, and that at age 75 you have to buy an annuity. Well, you don't have to. There is an alternative, and that's called Alternatively Secured Pension, or ASP. Drawdown, remember the correct name for that was unsecured pension. This is Alternatively Secured Pension, ASP. Now, it works very, very similarly to drawdown, but with a couple of differences. Firstly, do you remember on drawdown, there was limits imposed on how much income you could withdraw. The minimum income was 0, and the maximum was something called 120% of GAD. Remember that? Well, the limits on ASP are different. You can draw between 55% and 90% of GAD, so it's a much narrower window. A couple of other differences. First one is that there are annual reviews. Under drawdown, you remember, there are 5 yearly reviews where your fund size is taken a snapshot of. Obviously, you're 5 years older, and the GAD limits are recalculated. Well, that happens every year under Alternatively Secured Pension, with a little sort of wrinkle in that you are always assumed to be age 75. So let's say you live till you're 95. Well, as you go year on year, you're still drawing your income out, but the reviews of to how much that income can be is always based on you being age 75. And remember, drawdown is intended to sort of kind of mirror what you might get on an annuity. But if you buy an annuity, the older you get, the more income you get. But once you go into ASP, that doesn't happen anymore because you're always deemed to be age 75. So that's a bit of a raw deal. Now, why would they do that? Well, the point really is to avoid total fund depletion. The government don't want you dependent on state benefits in your frail dotage, so they set those rules so that you can't cream everything out of your pension fund and then be reliant on the state. That's how it works. That's the sort of income bit. Very similar to drawdown. You keep your fund, it remains invested, but the limits you can draw and the annual reviews are different. Another key thing is death benefits, though, because remember under drawdown you could either leave your benefits to a spouse and she could continue taking an income, or they could have the lump sum less a special rate of income tax of 35%. Well, in ASP it's pretty different. If you're in ASP, your pot has to provide pension benefits. That's the sort of first rule. If you've got a dependent. Now, if you don't have a dependent, there is an ability, it's called Alternatively Secured Rights. And there is an ability to pass your pension fund to a family member with certain very important caveats. Firstly, is they have to be a member of the same pension scheme as you. Well, that's pretty limiting. So it may be that if you've got your ASP with a certain provider, the family member you want to pass your benefits to would also have to be a member of that same scheme with that same provider. Pretty limiting. The biggest downer, though, is that you can do that, but that's called an unauthorized sort of lump sum payment into their pension. They can't have the lump sum out in cash to spend it. It's got to go to improve their benefits in their pension scheme. But unfortunately, the fund you leave them will be taxed up to a total of 82%, which is pretty punitive, I think you'll agree. So they get something, they'll get 18% of the fund after the tax, but that's an incredible tax rate and quite a screw by the government, really. So, I mean, when ASP was first mooted as a possibility, there was much excitement in that families could set up sort of family pension arrangements and money could be moved from scheme to scheme down the generations. But the government realised they'd be missing a tax hit on that, so they effectively removed that possibility by slapping this incredibly punitive tax rate. So why would you do ASP then? If the death benefits are not that much good and the income limits are much tighter, why would you do it? Well, primarily you do it if you were really reluctant to buy an annuity. Let's say you had really poor health and you had a short life expectancy. It would be a daft idea to buy an annuity if you knew you were going to die within 6 months, because you'd be handing your fund over. Perhaps if you wanted to cream out the maximum income from your pension and use that income to make gifts. We'll come on to taxes in a few videos' time, and one of the good ways you can avoid inheritance tax is to make regular gifts, but I'll come back to that. So you might want to do that. Or maybe you've just decided that you want to leave your entire pension fund to charity. Whatever's left of it when you die, you want to leave it to charity. Well, you could do that. That's a good reason to continue in ASP once you hit age 75. But as I say, this could all be a moot point as a result of the consultation. Not sure when that's going to be. Chances are that there will be you'll be able to continue into some kind of drawdown for the rest of your life. Certainly, we hope so. But I'd be very surprised if the normal drawdown rules are allowed to continue for the rest of your life, because the government are going to be missing a tip there. So that's ASP. Whistle stop. So we've pretty much done most of the ways, I think all the ones I can think of anyway, of getting money out of a pension. So next I'm just going to summarise them, look at the pros and cons of annuities versus drawdown versus phased retirement and things like that. And then we'll sort of we'll round pensions up there and move on to taxation, explaining the different taxes. So from Eskills Cliff and Grenva Beach behind me, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.